Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, one episode at a time, per day. And welcome on today's the 2nd of December 2017, and I just finished watching the first episode of the next Patrick Troughton story, The Ice Warriors, the first episode being titled 1. Yeah, it's a weird scheme for this story that they have literally just... The episode, the number titles are just the numbers, but that's what we're going with. And this is a very, very promising start to a story. It has very much, this is the third story in a row that's really the base Under Siege format, with the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria arriving on a distant future Earth, and where our base that will be sieged by aliens is a base during the second great ice age of humanity, which is a very clever idea, sort of inverting fears about global warming and what if it actually was global cooling we had to watch out for, which, it's almost a ha-ha moment, but, I don't mind it too much, because it is, I actually quite like that idea. It's quite unique. It's sort of like, we've never really had a Doctor Who story set in an ice age, but this actually is a story that is very, very suited to cold nights, as you really do feel the cold, at least in this episode. And hopefully the rest of the story will, of course, keep up the atmosphere, as that is sometimes a problem with stories, as they do not keep up a proper atmosphere for the show. But as we have it now, we are at a good, great way of starting, and I'll be interested to see where the story continues from here, as we go on from here. But we start with the big premise is that basically the Doctor comes to this place. He isn't even coming to stop an alien invasion at first. No, he's just like, well, I can try to help you with your computer problem, because they're trying to basically melt the ice to try to make the Earth habitable again, or else they're going to have to evacuate the planet, and that's going to be very, very difficult, and only getting all the people to like one place where it's not at all icy. But some people at this base have actually found a figure deep within the ice level, like some random thing, and basically the big episode is while the Doctor is basically going on trying to save these people, the figure thaws out, and the big cliffhanger is that it's alive, which is a very, very creepy image, and an image that I very much like. Like, you have this figure melting out of the ice and starting to move and just sort of like become a creature that might attack us all. It's a very, very creepy design, and a very solid start. This episode is the fourth story by Brian Hales. The story is the fourth story by Brian Hales. The Dark Planet, of course, being a lost story, and then The Celestial Toymaker and The Smugglers, both stories which I had big problems with. But this one, we seem to be starting on the same foot as The Dark Planet, with a very solid episode. I have a couple of problems, mainly the computer. You can't really understand the voice. That's a big problem, and you're supposed to get this data from it, and you can't understand the voice. It's not very logical. You think a computer you'd be able to understand it a little bit better. That's really my big problem with that. And the episode is just a little too long. It probably could have gotten to the point a bit quicker before we had everything. But we do have some really good comedy. Deborah Watling and Fraser Hines have great chemistry together. Like, Jamie's like, oh, these girls, they're wearing very short dresses. You think we could get you in one of those, Victoria? And she's like, we will now change the subject, Jamie. And it's just funny little exchanges like that really cement their relationship as characters and make them really, really fun to watch. And I'm glad that this episode exists, so you could just see the expressions on their faces as they sort of, as Victoria's like, really, Jamie? And Jamie's like, yes, of course. It's all just sort of, it's all done in good fun, and I very much enjoy the way the story decides to play around with their relationship and have them as people. I also love how it's like, oh, you just landed us up halfway up the mountain. I mean, sort of calling back to the last story being the Abominable Snowmen. So that's also just a fun little thing that, sort of gives you just the real feeling that everything is, sort of meant to be like this. And I really, really do. I really do like it. It's a very, very fun story, and it's a story that, It's a story that just sort of gives us, an episode that gives us a lot of fun insight with just a couple of it's just that little minor issues that keep it from being anything perfect. But it's a really, really strong start. We have this creature thawing from the ice being our big cliffhanger, and the Doctor being nowhere around to say, as it's probably going to get up and attack Jamie and Victoria. But other than that, yeah, the Ice Warriors 1 gets a 9 out of 10 from me. It is now the 3rd of December 2017, and I just finished watching The Ice Warriors 2, the second episode, of course, of The Ice Warriors, and the first of 2 missing episodes of this story. Of course, this story is not complete, but I'm glad that these episodes were actually animated for the DVD release, giving us a decent enough feel for what the story is, and a pretty good feel for what the story could become when it comes to basically the rest of the story. And we have what is essentially just the continuation of the last episode, with the reveal that these creatures, that were in the ice, they are aliens, and they are from Mars. They are green aliens from Mars, which I have to say that is an interesting way of doing this one. You have aliens from Mars invading the planet, and as an episode, we get a real sense that these aliens are powerful aliens. They are here, and they mean business. We aren't expecting it. We don't know if the Doctor's necessarily going to get out of this one completely unscathed, as we have a story that just is, as we have Victoria captured, and much being made of the fact that the story essentially keeps us going, and as I said, this is a really solid episode. We are back to stories that really grab your attention, because we have the story with Victoria being threatened by the Ice Warrior, and being threatened to be killed, so, her meekness in this one is kind of justified, because, she has a gun to her head. You have Clint and the rest of his base essentially trying to still figure everything out, and you have our 2 scavengers, Penley and Storr. Storr gets essentially knocked out of the action, and Penley goes off to try to find Victoria after the Doctor meets with him, and it's this very multi-layered plot that Brian Hales does an excellent job at actually presenting us, mainly because we get the feeling that everything is moving towards something. We have a reason to care for these characters, and we have everything going on. Again, this episode was animated, and I have to say the animation job, it's done in a very cartoony style, but the cartoony style really does work. You get a really solid feeling that this is the style they're going for, and it's very much intentional. It's not just we thought this would be a cool looking style. No, it's an intentional, this is the style. That looks really, really nice. And the big cliffhanger is there are more of the Ice Warriors, and Varga's going to be the Ice Warrior that's already been thawed, is going to be thawing more of them. And this episode is just, it continues to be great for the story, so much so that I'm going to give the Ice Warriors 2 10 out of 10, because it ramps up the tension, and even if it's missing, we still get, the animation is good enough to, give us the full experience of what this story episode is. It is the 4th of December 2017. I forgot the date there for a moment, and I just finished watching The Ice Warriors 3, the 3rd episode of the story. And it keeps, even though it's the second animated episode, it keeps up everything really well. Mainly the story is split into 2 halves, with the first half having a lot of the subplot being, are we going to be able to save the planet, and that gets dropped here as the Doctor, yes, is of course able to save the planet, and while we don't go into perfect detail as to how he does it, we get enough... Excuse me, my throat's a little, scratchy. We get enough detail as to that it does happen well enough so that we can actually continue on with the story and keep everything going at a good pace. The Doctor, of course, saves the planet, and it is this string of events that really gives us to the story. This is the second missing episode of the story, and I have to say that a lot of the animation of the Doctor is really, really good, and we're building up to the Ice Warriors having a spaceship and taking Victoria to the spaceship, where they're going to, of course, attack her, and it is an excellent way of doing things, having a real menace exist for the Doctor to fight in this one. The Ice Warriors are a great villain. I love what they're doing with them, and we're building up. This is a standard middle. It's a middle episode. We have the spaceship. We have the Doctor coming to rescue her, and basically having a target thrown on him at the end, being a really good cliffhanger, and that leads back into, of course, live action for the next episode, which is going to be great, because the rest of the story exists, and the next couple of stories, for the most part, exist, which will be really good, considering we've had stories that have been, another story that's been mostly missing. We have a really good section of Trout in here to actually get a real handle on how he plays the role, which is kind of surprising, because we're about halfway through his run right now. We're nearing halfway through his run already, considering his run was a bit shorter than Hartnell's. But yeah, this is leading us towards the big conclusion. There isn't too much plot that goes on, it's really just the transition, and it does that transition so well. The Ice Warriors 3 gets another 10 out of 10. It is the 5th of December, 2017, and I just finished watching The Ice Warriors 4, the 4th episode of The Ice Warriors, and this one takes a bit of a decrease in quality from the last two, mainly, we're back to existing episodes, which is great. I'm glad that we have... we're back to episodes that you can watch without, without really having, without animation and everything, but, and it's a great episode in its own right, but this episode has some pacing problems, mainly the fact that a lot of the episode spends its time... essentially spends a lot of the time working with just... It basically is just, hey, we have this episode, but we're not going to do much with it. We're really just going to keep it where it is and call it before, that is... before anything, goes on. And that isn't exactly the best thing for this story. You could really use a lot more of the episode just taking the time to be a story and not just be like, right, we're doing this now, and instead of just having Victoria wander around the ice caves. Mainly it's because the direction doesn't really give enough of the suspense that it needs to, and then the cliffhanger repeat from the last one has a weird thing, and there's just a couple of shots that they look off. They don't feel quite right when it comes to the way they're composed. It feels like they should have been composed with slightly more care put into them than what they were. They were just sort of composed as, this is what we've got, and that's all we're having with it. I don't quite like... It's just not the best composition of shots. Like, and there are a couple of just quick cuts that feel like they might... and I couldn't tell if they were like, if they were like a real sort of, if that was an intentional like design choice, or it was like missing footage that needed to be restored. They were just those one or two cuts in the story that just, it doesn't, they didn't, they felt very much just like we're just sort of pushing the episode to be finished, and that is mainly where my problem lies with this one. It's just the fact that it's like, oh, we've got these, and we aren't really going to be doing too much interesting with them. It's a problem there. You sort of have a need for the story to continue, just so we can, just to give us the little something that's needed, to finish the story off, and it doesn't, nothing just comes together like it really should be. We have the just the story trying to finish before we get anything big and interesting. And but other than that, we have a really, really good episode. Patrick Troughton is great. The cliffhanger at the end is really, really good. It's just that first beginning bit that doesn't make too much sense. So, that being said, I am going to give the Ice Warriors 4 a 9 out of 10, because it's just there's just those little foibles that make it a little lesser in quality than the other ones have been. Alright, so it is the 6th of December 2017, and I just finished watching the 5th episode of The Ice Warriors, promptly titled 5. And I have to say that we have gone slightly down in quality from the last 4 episodes, mainly the fact that because we're in the home stretch, and this is just your typical episode trying to get us to the big finale. So, of course, the drop in quality is expected, and it's not the worst drop in quality. It just, mainly it's for something that happens very near the cliffhanger, which I will get to when I get to it. But the episode actually starts out very, very well. It as an episode, it does its best to keep the interest and have everything be going and leading towards a pretty good what should be a good conclusion to the story. You have the Doctor and Victoria captured on the ship of the Ice Warriors. We get the explanation that, the Ice Warriors, they've been there in the ice for millions of years. Mars is no longer inhabitable. And they thought that they think the ionizers are trying to kill them. So it's very much they're really sort of defending themselves. But of course, the Doctor is taking the human side, mainly because, well, the Ice Warriors are the villains, and they're ruthless, and they're ruthless killers. One of the few times the Doctor actually doesn't really take the stance. It's weird that he doesn't try to mediate. You'd think he would, which is, it's sort of an interesting little twist on this one, that the Doctor decides not to be the one to try to mediate things, and basically realize that the threat has to be defeated. I don't think the Doctor obviously wants violence. You have the plot with Penley and Jamie and chasing a bear, which is an okay sequence. They had a bear, they filmed a real bear for this, but the direction, the tension isn't there, because you can tell that the bear is nowhere near Penley and Jamie, and it's not a full-size bear, it's a baby bear. Like, on page, the script works, but just because the realization, with it not really being an actual bear, is where things fall apart. Fraser Hines gives a good performance, even though he's crippled throughout the entire episode, which is, I know he's playing the part where he can't really move, which is a very, very good way of doing it. It's interesting. It does something new with the character, and gives us a reason, really, to care. It's just his scenes drag on for far too long, and they're not very enjoyable. And again, a lot of this is just the problem with it's dragging on for far too long. It's still very, very enjoyable as an episode. don't get me wrong, the Ice Warriors has been a really solid story so far, continuing really a run of really good stories, which hopefully won't be broken anytime soon. But yeah, the episode is good. It definitely it gives us something to go with. You have the Doctor having his plan. He has a stink bomb, and he's not going to kill the Ice Warriors. He's just going to make them basically make a diversion so he can escape. Which is, that is something that I find quite Doctor-like. He's not trying to kill them. He just wants to save himself and his friends, and that is something very admirable of the Doctor. It's something that the Doctor really would do. You know the character by now that this is what he does. Comes to save the world, and is therefore not only there to save the world, but to try to do it as peacefully as possible. Which sort of contradicts what's obviously that he's still trying to destroy the Ice Warriors, and he hopes they can live in peace, but he kind of knows by now that they really can't, which is interesting. Deborah Watling gives a great performance as Victoria. Mainly, there's points. Victoria is called a damsel in distress mainly because of episode 4 of this story, but then they always forget episode 5, where she and the Doctor are the ones formulating the plan to escape. Mainly that she's going to cry, and that's going to be the diversion. And that's really what leads us close to the cliffhanger, where mainly the big problem is the Doctor, his plan to stop the Ice Warriors, who are going to shoot at the base, fails because he couldn't get the cap of the bomb off. That is just one of the dumbest plot points I've ever seen in the show. Like, that really could have been done a lot better. And that's really where I stand on the Ice Warriors 5. All in all, a decent episode. Pretty good. It's a good episode. It's let down with quite a few leaps and logic where I just sigh and go, really? That's quite dumb. But so, the Ice Warriors 5 gets a 7 out of 10, and leading on tomorrow with the final part of the story, number 6. Alright, it is the 7th of December 2017, and I just finished watching The Ice Warriors 6, the concluding episode to the story, and it does improve over 5 quite a bit, mainly because, well, the resolution to the cliffhanger actually makes more sense than the cliffhanger itself. But there still are a couple of minor details that I have problems with, mainly the fact that as an episode, this one is just, it does go on a bit too long, near the end. Mainly you're waiting for the story to finish up, and then it's like, we're still gonna keep going, and then we're gonna keep going, and then keep going, and keep going. It's a story that it doesn't want to end nearly as easily as it really should. It's one that you get the feeling that they're meant to be a quicker ending for this that just never came about. So you have that being a lot of the episodes, sort of, the episodes. Well, it's what the episode wants to be, but it just sort of doesn't. It just sort of ends up stopping itself before it can really feel like it's the ending of everything. It goes on just for that little bit too long, so much so that I can't give it the perfect score, and the fact that just everything is sort of has been building to this, and that building to this is ever so slightly underwhelming when compared to the rest of the story. It just doesn't work as well when it comes to thinking about the rest of the story and how how everything just sort of adds up together, and we end the story with a strong note, and with some really nice footage of the ice caverns ending the story and just giving us that big foregone conclusions. And so everything that I have to say is that's really all I have to say about this one, is that it's a good ending. Patrick Troughton's great. The ending is it's a very clever ending with the way they do it. They destroy the ice wars with their own, almost hoist by their own petard using sound, and it almost goes as far as killing off everyone else when it comes to this, but thankfully they don't. They just leave it to they mainly leave it to the to everyone being alive, and not with that much of a downer of an ending, which is better than ending on necessarily what I would say would be a bad note. So I'm going to give the Ice Warriors the Ice Warriors 6 an 8 out of 10, because it concludes the story, and we get everything wrapped up in a nice bow. That being said, we can of course now add up all 6 episodes of the story to give us the complete score. When doing that quick math, the Ice Warriors gets an 8.83 out of 10. Thank you, everybody, for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Please tell me your opinions on this story, if I'm being too harsh on it, if it's an all-time classic, or if I'm being way too lenient on it. And I will see you guys next time in the next installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon, where we take a look at the enemy of the world.